Hello, everyone. I'm Sesha Mary. I'm a Principal Group Product Manager in SharePoint and OneDrive product team at Microsoft. I'm joined here with me, Adriana Wood. Adriana?
Hello everyone, my name is Adriana Wood and I am a Senior Program Manager in the OneDrive and SharePoint team, focusing on the security and compliance needs of large complex enterprises. I hope you're doing well, and let's get started on our multi-geo session.
We are going to cover in this session 7 different topics, starting with what and why multi-geo, how to configure multi-geo in your tenant, then a seamless end-user experience in a multi-geo tenant, and then cross-geo move, and more importantly, advanced security and compliance controls, and then we will summarize our learnings. So to get started, what and why Microsoft Multi-Geo? Multi-Geo is about enabling a single Microsoft 365 tenant to span across multiple geographic regions or countries, and hence the term multi-geo. As you can see in this picture, a typical multi-geo deployment will have a central location, which is in this picture, North America, and a couple of satellite locations, Europe and Australia in this picture. Multinational companies have a need to satisfy data residency requirements. This means a given user's data, such as their OneDrive and mailbox, and perhaps even given project's data, needs to live in a specific geographic location. Let's say, for example, an Australian employee, his or her OneDrive and mailbox has to live in Australian data location. Multi-Geo is here to help you meet some of these data residency requirements. Now you may wonder, what are the geos that are supported in this particular topology? Let's take a look. Today, multi-geo is supported over a dozen data locations, starting with North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific like regions, and also specific countries like Australia, Canada, France, and so on. And as you can see, we have more data locations coming forward as well, such as Germany, Norway, and Poland, and so on. As the Microsoft 365 data center footprint expands, we do plan to bring multi-geo support for all those locations as well. So really, as you grow your business globally, you can bet on Microsoft 365 to be there and help you to meet your data residency needs in those new locations. We wanted to show you in this session lots of demos around how to effectively administer a multi-geo tenant. First, let's start with how to configure multi-geo in your tenant. The first step in configuring multi-geo in your tenant is to add the license for Microsoft 365 multi-geo to your tenant. You can work with your account team or the support team to be able to achieve this step. Once you have added the license, then geolocations experience will get light up in your tenant. Then you can add the satellite geolocations that are in need for your tenant. I'm going to show you those in an awesome demo in a minute. And then also, you need a way to associate users to the corresponding geolocation. You can either use Azure Active Directory directly in the cloud and associate user to a specific geolocation, or you can even use the on-premises Active Directory and synchronize a specific property to the cloud to get this accomplished as well. The specific property that I was talking about is called preferred data location. So for a given user, you specify the preferred data location. So let's say, for example, for Sesha, you want to specify that as US. In this case, you would say NAM, North America. And then for user Adriana, you may say that's a European user, so you want to specify EUR, which stands for Europe. That's all it is. Once you have configured these things, then your autopilot things will just automatically get provisioned in the right appropriate locations. Enough talking. Let's actually see them in action. Here I am in the SharePoint Admin Center, logged in as Sesha Mani, the global administrator for this organization. I'm looking at the Advanced tab, Geolocations panel. This organization has central location in North America, and also it has Europe, Asia Pacific, Australia, and Japan as the satellite geolocations. Now, I like to add an additional location. For that, I simply click on Add Location, and I can see the options available for me: India, Canada, United Kingdom, and so on. For this demo, I'm going to select Switzerland as the option and then click Next. In this experience, I need to select a domain for this Switzerland location, and I'm going to pick Contoso Bank Corp CHE. CHE is the acronym for Switzerland, and that's my convention of the naming the geolocations. Contoso Bank Corp CHE, and it shows me the SharePoint sites where they will be located, and also here is the location for OneDrive sites as well. And that's it. I have to go click on Add. That will initiate the provisioning of Switzerland satellite geolocation for this organization. At this point, while it is preparing the new location, all I have to do is simply wait until an email notification is being sent to me. Now the next question is, how do I see the distribution of users across all the geos in a multi-geo tenant? For that, I hop over to the Usage Insights and see the card User Count by Geo. This shows me user distribution across all the geos in this organization. I can even click on the card and see the trends for the last 6 to 7 months across all the geos. For example, I see that the North America has about 12 users in this case. Now the question is, how do I associate a given user to a given geo? For that, let's take a look at the user properties in the active users list. And for this purpose, I'm going to select the user Diego Siciliani. And as you can see, this user object is getting synchronized from on-premises. Now, let's take a look at the properties for this user object Diego. Let's go ahead and click on the user object. Among the properties, the important property of interest for us is preferred data location. Let me zoom in for you. As you can see, the property is set as EUR, which stands for Europe location. That means Diego's OneDrive and mailbox will be provisioned in the European location. If you're wondering how from on-premises Active Directory we can synchronize this property to Microsoft 365, let's take a look at it in the next step. Here I am in the on-premises Active Directory server looking at the list of users in this organization. Specifically, I'm looking at the user Diego Siciliani, the properties for this user object. The property of interest to us is this MSDS-preferred data location. Let me zoom in for you. As you can see, this property is set to the string EUR, which stands for Europe. So for the geolocation where you want this user's OneDrive and mailbox to reside, you simply specify the 3-letter acronym for that location. Similarly, for North America, it will be NAM. For Japan, it will be JPN, and so on. Now the question is, how do I get this property to Azure Active Directory? For that, you can use Azure Active Directory Connect tool. And here I have configured all the default attributes and now a directory extension attribute as well. Let me zoom in for you. This is the same attribute, MSDS-preferred data location, that I have selected so that this can be synchronized from on-premises Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. And once it is there in the cloud, all Microsoft 365 services will use this attribute to decide where to place the user's resources such as OneDrive, mailboxes, and so on.
So that's how easy it was to configure multi-geo in your tenant and also configure the preferred data location attributes for your users so they get associated with the right geolocation. Now, you may wonder what the end user experience is going to look like. Do they have to remember the URLs? Do they have to know which geo they are part of in order to get the experience? Let's actually see them in action. I'm going to now turn it over to Adriana, and she's going to walk us through end user experience, cross-geo move, as well as advanced security controls that are available in multi-geo tenant as well. Over to you, Adriana.
Thank you, Sesha. That was a great demo on how to get started with Multi-Geo. As we were defining Multi-Geo, we kept in focus one basic principle, and that is that the end user experience must be seamless across all geolocations. After all, the Multi-Geo tenant is a single entity across M365, capable of unifying your global workforce while at the same time allowing you to meet data residency obligations. I'll be showing you what a typical day may look like for a Multi-Geo user based in Europe operating within a tenant whose central geolocation is in North America. When a preferred data location of EUR is assigned to a new user in AD or AAD, that attribute synchronizes to SharePoint and Exchange Online to place the new user's OneDrive and mailbox in EUR. Likewise, the preferred data location attribute determines where that user can create their M365 group sites, even if they're not creating them from within SharePoint. While the primary search index for a site resides in the same geolocation where that site is hosted, our unified search experience fans out the user search query and brings together a unified and ranked result set. And advanced capabilities in Project Cortex can be applied to your content in the satellite geolocation, bringing together AI, the Microsoft Graph, SharePoint data repositories to build and extract key information. And with taxonomy replication from the central location into the satellite locations, you can create content types and apply them to sites in any geo. Let me show you what these capabilities look like at hand. For many of us, today begins with email. As a Multi-Geo user, I can receive emails from any of my coworkers in any of the geolocations. Here, I am showing you a few emails that I have received from my coworkers Diego, Adele, as well as Sesha. Likewise, I can also send email to any of the coworkers in the Contoso tenant because we are a single unified tenancy. Not only that, but as a Multi-Geo user based in Europe, I will also have my OneDrive for Business provision in Europe. Here you can see some of the files that are hosted in my OneDrive. As a European user, I am able to create a team just like the rest of the users within my tenant. Here I am going to go ahead and create a team from scratch. I will select my privacy settings as private for the team, and I will name this team EU Conference. So let's go ahead and begin creating the team. Now, unlike the central location users in my tenant, because I have a preferred data location of EUR, when I create my team, that team SharePoint site as well as its Exchange group mailbox will be provisioned in Europe. However, I can add people in the tenant regardless of their geolocation. So here I am just going to go ahead and add Sesha, and I will add Christine. So as you can see, Sesha is a US-based employee of Contoso and Christine is a French-based employee. So let's just pick my users. I can take my team and also open it in SharePoint. So here I will go ahead and click the tab to open my team in SharePoint. My EU conference team is now created in the European satellite location of Contoso. I want to raise awareness of the European conference, so I will go ahead and join my team to a hub site that is hosted in the central location of Contoso. So here again, I can see all of the details in my team, and I will go ahead and select to join it to the Contoso work, and I will save my changes. One of the key aspects to highlight in the Multi-Geo tenancy is that Hubsites aggregate results from all of the geolocations. Here we have some results that are coming from our microlending banking group in Europe, as well as results that are coming up from the work site that is based in North America. And of course, I am able to link any of the sites regardless of the geolocation into the hub. I am also able to search for any of the sites that are linked into the hub. So here I will be typing the word banking. And as you can see, I get results from banking regardless of the geolocation. Here I have some European results as well as some US operations banking results. So let's see the full results list. I can also go into one of my banking sites, in this case, Microlending Europe. Again, notice that my navigation is completely seamless. From the US hub, I went into the European site. I can also go into my documents, for example. Within the Documents library of my Microlending Banking European site, I have created a folder called Contracts, where I will be placing some contractual information that I need to extract data from. And to do that, I will be using Cortex in my satellite geolocation. I have been building a contract agreement Cortex model so that I can extract important information from my contract. So let me show you what this looks like. Again, note that my library is in the satellite geolocation. I can go ahead and add my particular library, in this case, the Microlending Banking Europe. Select the documents and add. Now, behind the scenes, the Cortex model is being applied to the library. Within my OneDrive, I have some contracts that I have been working on, and I will be moving these contracts into my European site. Note that in the Multi-Geo tenancy, I can copy as well as move files across the geolocations. In this case, I will be selecting the Microlending Banking Site Europe. And I will move these files into the Contracts folder. Let's click and begin the moving operation. Now the files have been moved. The contracts have been moved into the Microlending Banking European library, which has the Cortex model associated. And as you can see, the relevant fields have been extracted from the content and placed into site columns. In addition to that, end users can also add custom metadata columns, including content types. Here, I have added a content type of percentage complete, which shows me the relevant fields. And with that, we conclude the end user portion of our Multi-Geo demo. I hope you have learned more about the end user experience.
One of the great features of the Multi-Geo tenant is that users and sites can move across geolocations as the business and data residency requirements change. Moving users and sites is an activity that an administrator can easily perform in small and large scale through PowerShell. As part of user and site move, we provide extended capabilities to administrators so that they can perform validation only without scheduling the move, and even schedule moves to take place at a date in the future, so that they can target these outside of business hours with minimal impact. But many of you may be wondering, what happens when a site changes URL? Do your users lose access? Do they get broken links? As our focus on seamless experience persists across Multi-Geo, we ensure that with smart gestures that the user experience for site and user move continues to also be smooth, not only for the user who was moved, but also for the people who they collaborate with. To this end, we perform smart gestures that take care of redirecting links to the content, even when these assets have moved into another data center. We also work very closely with the sync client so that it backs off while the site move is taking place and reconnects to the new site location once the move concludes. Site content and functionalities, for example, lists, can also move seamlessly as part of GeoMove. Because data residency needs change over time, you can move users and sites across geolocations. Here we have a user and site who is moving from Europe into Australia. However, let's go and see what this looks like in action.
Our Contoso bank user, Archie Grady, has taken a job in the Australian location. On the left hand of the screen, I have his OneDrive for Business, which I will be moving from its current location in Europe to Australia. Once I have set Archie's preferred data location attribute of Australia, I can start an SPO user and content move. And I will select Archie's user principal name, and that is Grady at Contoso Bancorp. And I will input his destination data location, which is Australia, AUS. Now we can see that the move is scheduled and has begun. I can also get the move state for Archie, so I will do that by getting SPO user and content move state. And again, I will put his user principal name. And we are in progress at stage 2 of 4. So now that Archie's move has successfully completed, I will go ahead and refresh his OneDrive and see what happens. As you can see, when I refresh his OneDrive, I am automatically being directed to Australia. As part of GeoMove, we send special signals to the sync client so that it backs away from Archie's location in Europe and synchronizes to Archie's OneDrive's new geolocation in Australia once the move completes. Here you can see that I am now all set synchronizing into Archie's new geolocation of Australia. We also work closely with the Office clients to update the most recently used files, not only for Archie, but also for his closest collaborators. So let me log into Archie's PowerPoint and show you the experience. As you can see, when I hover over, the files that are in Archie's recent most used files are now pointing into the Australian geolocation. Again, ensuring that the experience is completely seamless for the user. The same is true if Archie had a link to the old geolocation. Because we place a redirector site, anybody clicking in an old link will be redirected from the old geolocation into the new geolocation. Here I have a link that is to a file at Contoso Bank EUR, and that is Archie's former OneDrive location. So let me show you what would happen if I enter this file link into the browser once more. As you can see, seamlessly the file link is now pointing into Contoso Bank AUS location. This ensures that Archie, as well as his collaborators, continue to have a seamless experience even when the URL of these files have changed. So now let us see what it looks like if I were to move one of Archie's sites into a different geolocation. Now that Archie Grady has moved to Australia, he's taken with him his bank plan site. Like many SharePoint sites, this site contains news. It also contains various libraries, in addition to the Bank Manager Group list, which is a list with conditional formatting. And of course, your classic Team Documents library. Archie has also bookmarked the site, and as you can see, the bank plan site is part of his bookmarks, and he has an email that was shared with him with a link to the bank plan site. So now let's see what it looks like to move the site. To move the site, the administrator will first connect to the geolocation admin center where the site is present. In this case, it is in the European geolocation. And next, they will do a start SPO site content move. Next, they will add the source site URL. And lastly, they will add the destination data location. And in this case, that is Australia, so that is AUS. Now the move is getting scheduled. And as you can see, the move has also picked up right away and is in progress of stage 1 of 4. Move has 4 different stages, and at the end of the stages, you will see a success message. As the move begins, the site should go into read-only state. Let us refresh the site and see what it looks like.
Here you can see a message that the site is being moved to a new data location as set by the administrator, and that the site will be read-only until the move is complete, and that is to preserve the content. So now let's check on the status of the move. To check on the status of the move, we will do get SPO site content move state. And then again, we will enter the source site URL. And that is, of course, the URL of our site. You can see that the move has now completed. So let us refresh the site. Now you can see that the site has been refreshed into the Australian location. And the content is now present on the site. Let us look at our account manager group list. Our list has been migrated, and note that the content formatting is also present. The same is true for our document library, so let us head into our Teams document library. And as I mentioned earlier, Archie had bookmarked the site, and that is in the site's old geolocation. So let us look at what the bookmark behavior is. As you can see, when I hover over the bookmark, it says Contoso Bancorp EUR, which is the former URL of the site. But let's see what happens when I click on that bookmark. Again, I am being redirected to the new location of the site that is in Australia, and that is because we have a site redirection smart gesture. I also had the link to the site that was shared with Archie by one of his coworkers, so let's click on that link. Again, seamlessly redirected. And then you may be also wondering, what happens if Archie had a document in his PowerPoint or any of the Office clients? Here, Archie has some documents that he has opened before in the Office client. And you can see that the Office client URL reference has been updated. And that is because we sent a smart gesture into the Office ecosystem to update these links, not only for Archie, but for his closest collaborators as well. And then lastly, we also refresh the OneDrive sync client. When the move is taking place, the sync client receives a smart signal from us to back away from syncing, and once the move completes, they receive a smart signal from us to sync into the new geolocation, thus completing the seamless experience for site move. Thank you, and now let's look at the advanced security controls.
So now that we have seen cross-geo user and sites move in action, let's talk about the advanced security controls. Not only is data residency of key importance for our multinationals, but with an ever-growing threat landscape, so is the security of your assets across your tenants' geolocations. To secure these files, you can leverage the MIP sensitivity labels to designate content as sensitive and to apply protections to it. You can define global sensitivity labels as well as labels that are targeted to sites and users and sites in certain geolocations of your tenant. Most importantly, labels can include encryption to protect your files wherever they may go, headers, footers, as well as watermarks. And with premium capabilities, security administrators can set up policies and rules to classify and label content at a large scale. These rules can also be targeted to users and sites in your geolocations. You can also apply granular conditional access policies that may be associated with a label, so that when this label is applied to a site, certain functions like download and print are disabled, protecting the egress of your key sensitive data. Likewise, you can configure and apply granular conditional access policies that are associated with users, groups, and sites. And lastly, because your multi-geo company is a single M365 tenancy, you can see audits across all of geolocations which are unified in the audit log search. So now let's see some of these advanced capabilities in action.
And of course, sensitivity controls are of great importance to our multinational customers. Now let's head into the information governance page where you can see some of the specific controls that apply to labels. Here I have created some labels. So let's see what a label looks like and what are the settings that I can apply. I start by adding the name of the label, a description that is helpful for our users, as well as a description that is helpful for our admins to know when the label is applied.
To labels, I can also choose to apply encryption so that I can control who is accessing these files via email or via web. In addition to that, I can add content marking. In this particular example, I have added watermark header and footer. An important aspect is that I can also select the settings that I want to take effect when a label is applied to an M365 group or to a SharePoint site. I have chosen that when a label is applied, this particular label, confidential, is applied, that the privacy of a site is going to change to private and that only members can access the site. I can also control access from unmanaged devices. So that is devices that have not enrolled into my network, for example, are not part of Intune policy configurations. I can allow full access, which means any device can access and perform all of the needed functions, or I can allow limited access, and this is web-only access, meaning no download, printing, or other outside of web functions. I have selected to allow limited access in this particular example, or I can block access completely unless the device is enrolled. I can also add auto-labeling policies through Office apps. And lastly, I can commit my settings and save my label. One of the key aspects that I want to highlight is that in the case of multinational companies, you can also select particular labels to be published to groups of users that are in your geolocations. In this case, I created a finance department's label, and I have created sub-labels that I have published to my users in Europe as well as in the US. You can do this through any kind of group membership so that you publish the label to a group of your European users. Labels can be applied manually as well as automatically. With label policies, I can set up the settings that I wish for when I apply a label. For example, who that label is going to be published, whether it is groups, users, or apps within my system. And of course, for E5 customers, we had advanced auto-labeling capabilities that allow you to define a label as well as its particular rules and have our auto-labeling engine automatically apply that label to our files. Here I have created a PCI security policy that is going to detect PCI content both in my central location as well as in my satellite location. So let me show you. In this case, I have chosen microbanking strategies, which is a central location site. And I have also chosen microlending banking Europe, which is my satellite location site. So both of these sites can be part of a labeling policy. The first aspect of auto-classification is that any policy that you create enters a simulation mode. In simulation mode, we run the policy against your content without applying the label and show you the results of the files that would be labeled once that policy is committed. You can see your match items and you can refine the policy as needed before turning that policy on. Here you can see what an auto-labeling policy looks like when it has been applied to a site in the satellite location. In this case, in Microlending Banking Europe, I have configured an automatic labeling policy to label as confidential any file that relates to Contoso's financial information. In the sensitivity column, you can see that the item has been labeled as confidential. Furthermore, when you hover over this item, you can see that the label has been automatically applied. And one of the key aspects here is that because this is an automatic classification, we are able to label up to 25,000 items in a day within your tenant, allowing you to really take the power of auto-labeling and bring it at a large scale without needing user input. In addition to manual and automated sensitivity classification, we also bring you a unified audit log search. I have selected some of the activities that I have been performing as part of the demos today. For example, scheduling a geo move, applying labels to a site or file, whether they're automated or manually applied. In my search results, you can see that these audit events are being shown. Here you can see the geo move that I have scheduled before. You can see that Seshamani has applied a sensitivity label into a site. And you can see that the SharePoint system, in this case automatic classification, has applied a sensitivity label to a file. You can drill down for any of these activities and show more information. Note that in this particular example, the sensitivity label was applied to Contoso Bank Corp EUR. As you can see, audit logging is unified no matter where the activities have taken place in your tenant or which users have performed them, bringing together some of the capabilities that unify our multi-geo story. In this segment, I have shown you enterprise-wide information protection with sensitivity labels, how I can target local and satellite geo users to my labels, auto-classifying satellite sites, granular level of conditional access policies that can be applied to my labels, as well as how both central and satellite user activities and system activities are audited and shown to you in a unified search experience. And now, on to the advanced compliance controls that Sesha will be sharing with you.
Thank you, Adriana. That was an awesome set of demos across end-user experience, cross-geo move, and advanced security controls. But wait, there is more. I want to talk about compliance controls that we have available in the multi-geo setup. You are a one organization or one enterprise. It's not a siloed satellite organizations, right? So you truly want an enterprise-wide policies that you can create and manage. At the same time, have the flexibility to create local satellite geo-specific policies as well. We offer you both the flexibility and the extensibility of these policies. Starting with retention labels. You can create them and apply them across the enterprise, or you can even target specific SharePoint site or teams in a given satellite geolocation like Japan. Also, you want to have a 360-degree view of what's happening in your enterprise content. For that, hop over to Content Explorer or Activity Explorer, where you can see the full visibility into what activities your users are doing, no matter which geo they are in, and no matter where the content is posted either. A Japanese user can operate on a content that lives in the US, you will get to see it. The second thing I want to talk about is information barrier scenario. There are many highly regulated industries, like finance industries, for example, have obligation to SEC and obey the FINRA compliance, which is control the insider trading or block the insider trading. What it means is, imagine a situation in a Japanese satellite geo, you have investment bankers group. Because of the nature of their work, they work on a top secret client information. They want to have a control such that those satellite users cannot collaborate or communicate with other set of users in the organization. Now you can achieve these advanced scenarios using information barriers alongside with multi-geo tech. The third aspect I want to call about is external user sharing. Not only internal users, you also want to have a complete view of who is inviting external users, what activities your external users are doing, and more importantly, are they deleting some of the files in your specific geolocation or not? All these views, you can now get them in external sharing reports. And also, you can automatically expire external access as well. And that you can tailor per geo. Isn't that cool? It is. And the last thing I want to call out is governance features like e-discovery. You can even have per geo e-discovery managers, like one for Europe geolocation or one for your Japanese geolocation as well. I'm sure you are curious to see all of these in action, right? Let's take a look. Before I go there, there is one surprise element here in this demo. Keep an eye on it.
We are here in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, and the user Seisha Mani, the compliance admin for this organization, is logged into the center. I'm looking at the information governance solution and specifically the retention labels. The label of interest to us is the financial data, and this label has a 7 years retention period, as you can see here. Now let's take a look at the policies associated with these labels. For that, click on Label Policies, and let's double click on the financial data label policy and see what locations that this policy is being applied to. So for that, let's click on Edit on the locations. And as you can see, this policy is applied to all locations, including content in Exchange email, Microsoft 365 groups, OneDrive, and SharePoint files as well. However, if you want to tailor this policy to specific satellite geolocations, then you can click on Let me choose specific locations, and you can pick specific email mailboxes, as well as specific location SharePoint sites and OneDrive accounts, as well as Microsoft 365 groups as well. And this is how, by clicking choose groups or choose accounts, you can tailor the policy for satellite location. For this demo, I'm going to select all locations and then click Save, and let's close the policy. Now the policy is being applied for all locations in my Multi-Geo tenant. Next, the question is how this retention label is applied across all the geos. What are all the files? Which geolocation has the most number of files, and so on. So as a compliance admin, I like to see the view of that. For that, let's hop over to data classification overview. As you can see here, I can see that US Social Security number and EU debit card number are actually used in my organization, and I can see how many files are actually having those sensitive information. Also, it shows me the top sensitivity labels applied in my organization. For example, confidential tops the list, followed by top secret. And Adriana covered these sensitivity labels in her demo as well. The one I'm interested in is the top retention labels that are applied in this organization. So product retired followed by financial data is second in place, which is mostly used in the organization files. So let's actually take a double click on it. So for that, I'm going to click on Content Explorer, which will show me how the financial data label applied files are distributed. So here I am in the financial data retention labels. 64 files are labeled in this particular retention policy. And I can see the distribution of that across my geos. So for example, you can see that corporate site, which is a site, has 53 files. And then in Switzerland is 0, which is expected. And because we just initiated the Switzerland geo early in this demo, European site has about 11 files with the financial data retention label. And then other satellite geos like Australia, Asia Pacific, and Japan, they all have 0 files with their retention label of financial data. Not only the distribution, I also can see specific files, those 11 files that are in European location. Here I am looking at the 11 files, and specifically I'm looking at the banking guideline file, and I can see the preview of the file side by side. I can scroll down on the file and see the full content of this particular file itself. Project scope, it looks like a web launch briefing related file, and I get the full view of the content itself. And more importantly, this file is hosted in an European geolocation, and the way that I can see it is by looking at the URL of the file itself. So let me zoom in for you. As you can see, the site is hosted under Contoso Bank Corp EUR.SharePoint.com. That means it's an European site, and specifically under the micro lending site itself. So this shows you the power of information governance solution coming together with multi-geo capabilities, so that as a compliance admin, I have a 360-degree view of all my content, no matter where it is hosted in my multi-geo. How cool is that? The next compliance control we are going to see is information barrier policy. This policy allows you to create barriers between your business groups to allow or block communication and collaboration between those business groups. Here, I am in the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center defining an information barrier policy. First, I have 2 segments, investment banking and advisory. Investment banking segment has users like Jeff, Jason Lee, and Seisha. Advisory segment has users like Nikita. I can use the familiar Azure Active Directory properties to define these segments. Next, clicking on the Policies tab, I have Investment Banking to Advisory policy created. I have a choice of either allow or block communication and collaboration between these two segments. In this case, I'm going to select block and then click Save. That's how easy it is to create an information barrier policy in your organization. Now, let's take a look at it from an end user experience perspective. Here I am logged in as Jason Lee, a user from Japan satellite location. Jason is accessing a site, Japan Investment Banking, and this site is hosted in Japan location. As you can look at the URL, let me zoom in for you. It is hosted under Contoso Bank Corp jpn.sharepoint.com hostname. This tells me the site is hosted in the Japan location. Also, I see the segments notification. When I click on it, it shows me investment banking. Let me zoom in for you. This site is associated with investment banking information segment. That means the site is accessible no matter what only by investment bankers. And also, it can be shared only with investment bankers too. Now, let's take that experience in action. Let's pick a file, Financial Forecast and Strategies file, and click Share. First, I'm going to try to share with Jeff McDowell. I can see him, I can select him, no problem, because he is also in investment banker segment. Now, let me try to share with Nikita, who is part of corporate advisory segment. I can't even see her in this context of the site. This is information barrier policy in action. Now, let's try to share with some other user. Let's say Lydia. Lydia does not belong to corporate advisory segment nor investment bankers. She is from other rest of the colleagues. However, I can't see her either in this particular site because the site is associated with investment banking segment. So I can only see investment bankers in my organization. Now, you may wonder what happens in a site that is not associated with an information segment. Now, let's take a look at such a site. Here I am in the branding site on your right hand side. And as you can see, let me zoom in for you. This site is hosted in the Central North America location, contosobankcorp.sharepoint.com. And the user is Jason Lee, and the site is actually not associated with any segments at all. Anybody in my organization can be invited to this particular site. Now, let's see the sharing experience in this site. Let's select a file, HCI Research, and click on Share. Let's first try to share with Jeff McDowell. I can see him, I can select him because he also comes from investment banker segment. Let's now try to share with Nikita. I can't see her in this site either. This is because of the information barrier policy that blocks collaboration between Jason and Nikita. Now, let's try to share with Lydia. Lydia, I can type it in and I can see her. And this is because she does not belong to corporate advisory. So I'm allowed to see other users, and hence in this branding site, I can see her, I can select her, and I can share with her. This shows you the power of information barrier policy, such that between your business groups, you can block collaboration and communication to meet your highly regulated compliance controls. Now, you may wonder how, as a SharePoint administrator, I can update or see the information segments on the SharePoint sites, right? No worries. Here in the SharePoint Admin Center, we have introduced a new column, Information Segment, which shows you the sites that are associated with information segments. It shows you the number of segments a given site is associated with. Now, let me see the particular site, Corporate Advisory Team. By the name of it, I would have expected that the site should have segment associated with it, but it's not. So let's go ahead and update this site. All I have to do is click on the site. And in the information panel, I can go to the Policies tab. There is a new Information Segments option available for me. I click Edit, and that shows me the list of information segments in this organization that I can choose from. I see Advisory and Investment Banking. I'm going to select the Advisory for this particular site and click Save. And that's it. That's how easy it is to update a given site's information segments. This concludes the Advanced Compliance Controls demo segment.
So, did you find that one surprise highly sophisticated feature that I was talking about? If your answer is information barriers across the satellite user segments, pat yourself on your back. That's the right answer. Now, this concludes our demo marathon. Before I go to the summary, for curious minds who want to know how all these things tie together at the back end, let me show you one very important slide. So, here is the blueprint of the architecture, tying all the components together for the SharePoint Multi-Geo. I tried to condense all this information into one slide, but I can tell you, I can write a book on this particular topic because it is such an amazing information hidden in this slide. I'm going to walk you through on 5 key points. First point, Azure Active Directory is the master for multi-geo information for your organization, plus all the user managements that comes along with it. What geos your tenant is expanded to, which user belongs to which particular geo. Remember the preferred data location property that I talked about? All of these things are mastered in Azure Active Directory. The second key point is, how do you manage these users in your enterprise? This is where Microsoft 365 Admin Center comes into play. As we showed in our demo throughout the session, preferred data location can be seen on a given user object property in Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And also, you can see the OneDrive and Mailbox properties for the corresponding users as well. So we tie in all the services, funnel through the information to one single point of task for administration, which is Microsoft 365 Admin Center. The third point I want to cover is around end user experience. Adriana showed us awesome demos on end users, like search experience, for example. All of these things are tied together with our shared services infrastructure, like search service. We bring together unified results by fanning out the results, get the results back, and then in a single relevance, we are providing the results back to the end users. So this is covered by our shared services infrastructure. The fourth point is around the compliance and security center. As I mentioned earlier, it's a one organization. So really, our design principle is to give you a full 360-degree view of all the content, all the activities that are happening in your enterprise. And the only way we can do that is by having a single enterprise-wide admin center, which is our Microsoft 365 Security Center and Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. This is where you can configure the enterprise-wide labels policies, as well as any other security policies. Finally, the fifth point I want to call out is the enterprise-wide information barriers like advanced compliance policies. You can set the enterprise-wide policies in these centers, and then these get propagated across all the geolocations. So we have the replications in place, and then each individual location, we enforce the corresponding policies. We also have per geo administration centers for SharePoint and Exchange as well, so that you can target a given user as an administrator for that particular geo as well. So that was, in quick few minutes, an overview of our blueprint of the architecture for the multi-geo. So to recap and summarize, what we have showed in this particular video session is what and why multi-geo is. and also how easy it is to configure Multi-Geo in your tenant. What are the end user experiences looks like? How transparent the end user's experience are with respect to the Multi-Geo capabilities we have shown. Advanced security and compliance controls, where we have combined the Multi-Geo topology with many of our new and upcoming security and compliance controls like information barriers and Microsoft information protection labels. And finally, I also showed you the blueprint of the architecture as well. With these demos, we hope that you feel the Telemeta detail, which is administering a Multi-Geo is a very snappy, quick and easy experience. I want to finish with one call to action. You can learn more about Microsoft 365 Multi-Geo at aka.ms/m365 Multi-Geo. And also, we encourage you to enable Multi-Geo in your tenant, and we are looking forward to hearing from you your feedback as well. And here is a slide with related session videos. I strongly encourage you to check it out as well. On behalf of Microsoft Multi-Geo team, we would like to thank you for your time today watching this video session. We hope that you felt the session was very informative and insightful, and also sets you up for success in administering your Multi-Geo tenant. Until we see you again next time, hopefully in person, this is Seisha and Adriana signing off. Take care and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching the Multi-Geo demos. We look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in person.